People who let their mom count to zero, what happened after? She's currently on 1,125,899,906,842,624. I'll let you know if she ever gets there. Alright, I'm coming in late here, but this reminded me of the time I went the distance with my mom. My whole life we've rarely argued, and during my entire upbringing we only had a few actual fights. All of which were 100% my fault. The point I'm making is that my mom is a really sweet, genuine person who did an amazing job raising two boys on her own. When I was 12 I had a bad day and got home in a mood. I wasn't quite looking for a fight per se, but I was being a crabby, snappy, negative jerk. Mom put up with it for a while and then had enough. I can't recall the catalyst, but she wanted me to do something and I refused. So the count came, 3, 2, and I interjected, 1, bitch. There was a stunned silence for a moment and then she looked at me with rage in her eyes. Fime saw I pleaded, but I had crossed a line and punishment was coming. She moved so fast, like a blur, and I was frozen. I was taller than her, but she scooped me up, thrust me in a chair and told me to wait there. Her voice had both ice and heat. How is that possible? She came back with a bar of ivory soap which she jammed into my mouth. It was gross, with high notes of bitter soap taste but also a strange sickly sweetness that made me want to gag. And that's how I know that Dr. Pepper tastes like Robitussin with ivory soap, a splash of prune juice and carbonated water. I think I got grounded as well, but the fear she instilled really did the trick. My mom's done this to my brother. He had no countdown but was pre-warned, forgot what he did, but it was hilarious. Then I laughed some more as she projectiled the brush at him. It hit him and broke back. Then my brother was Granny's favorite, so he threatened to tell my gran. My mom tried to call his bluff, saying he wouldn't when he did. My gran went, "What did you do to piss her off to deserve it, huh?" Now he's 26, he torments the crap out of our mom, so she just goes to find the brush and he runs off. Wooden spoon impact. Edit. I see a lot of people asking if I'm Italian, Irish or even Polish. Nope, American. But the art of the wooden spoon was taught through many generations in our family. I'm just thankful I never got the belt. In my story, my mom pulled out a wooden spoon and hit the table with it to be very menacing. Unfortunately for her, she hit the table hard enough that the spoon snapped and the round part went flying off. My sister and I, 2 years apart, burst out laughing, and my mom couldn't help but laugh too. I don't honestly remember her using/threatening a wooden spoon after that. Aw, bless you, I'd forgotten I played that game with my parents. The first time I heard 2, 1.5, 1.25, I asked why the numbers weren't getting smaller anymore, and got my first fraction lesson. That time it was an effective tool because I was so fascinated by the concept of fractions that I stopped fighting, leaving the pool. The game was a reward of sorts. When I thought I'd been good enough to get an extra minute before bed, in the bath, etc., after mom or dad got to 2, I'd say 1.5. I didn't always get to play. On days when we had a minute to spare and I'd behaved, the response was 1.25, and the game was on. We went back and forth, saying a number smaller than the one before. When I messed up and accidentally went up numerically, the game was over, and I had to do whatever it was they were counting for. They made it harder as I got older, jumping random intervals, but they stopped when I finally completely understood fractions, and could go on for hours. Dad later used the game to teach me how negative numbers work, but I caught on to that one quickly. Number games like that are also fun in the car. She started counting to negative numbers. I think mine did fractions. 1/2. 1/4, so she never reached 0? Oh Lord, she comin'. I'm just piggybacking off this comment because it was literally a no lord moment. My mom is quite deaf, about 85% of her hearing is gone. Well, around the time it first started to fade she was in a foul mood. She screamed at me to tell my cousin to come downstairs and come and eat. As I turned and said okay and she could not read my lips, I just heard her scream from behind me. I said, "Go and get your cousin." As she opened the freezer door, pulled out a frozen loaf of bread and launched it directly at my head. I woke up about 90 seconds later with her sobbing on top of me and with a pounding headache, and she never hit me again. We also got McDonald's after. Not my mother, the QAs. She rarely disciplined me and my siblings, but my grandma, oh no. When I went to 0, I got her classic little old Asian lady move, a sock filled with pennies thrown at me at speeds I never thought possible. Shit hurted. Bold of you to assume that they are alive to tell their story. Yes, I am actually dead right now. Yay, my mom got to 0, and I died from fear. Then she got super angry and started counting for me to come back to life. So I resurrected the fuck up, and never got to 0 again. My grandma got so very pissed a couple of my cousins once that she started throwing whatever she could get her hands on. Shoes, spoons, brushes, but they were dancing around so much trying to dodge that they burst out laughing. This only pissed her off more, and their brother decided to help her out by bringing the stuff she threw back to her so she never ran out of ammo. But this only made them laugh harder while simultaneously yelling at him to stop. They reached a stalemate when they all got tired to carry on. I stupidly said, "Wow, I didn't know you could count," and she beat the soul out of me. I saw everything that had ever happened in any place ever all at the same time. I saw every great extinction event in reverse and the thunderous slaps had fucking reverb. She beat me like a sexually frustrated teen beats their meat. She hit me so hard I saw new colors. Her grip was like a jaguar's jaws on a gazelle's neck. There was no escape. My grandma was the sweetest woman in the world, until you did something stupid. We grew up in the South, and she had this big-ass sweeping willow tree in the front yard. She would prolong the experience by making us, me and my 2 brothers, go pick our own weapons of torture from the willow tree and clean the leaves off. She called them switches. Often, she would have me go pick the switch from the tree instead of my brothers. I was the youngest, she died when I was only 6 or 7, and I didn't understand that longer willow vines equals more pain. So I'd pick the longest vines possible, cause I enjoyed the sound they made when I swung them through the air. She could crack those willow vines off your ass like a damn bullwhip. If any of us laughed at our brother getting it, she'd always say, "I'll give you something to laugh about," and proceed to alternate blows between us. We didn't find it funny anymore after that usually. Short story time. Raised in an Asian household, near Tiger Mom, all that stuff. Can't even remember what it is exactly I did to set her off, but she turns on her usual rage face and starts staring me down. Next thing I know, she tells me to go to her room and grab her leather belt, and that I have 5 seconds to get it or else shit is gonna happen. For the first time in my life, I decided to take a stand. First I told her I didn't want to because I'll just get hurt, but the countdown continued, and by the time she reached 1 I laid down a flat and calm no. She tried to hide it, but I can tell she was absolutely stunned. You know that saying, "I wasn't thinking that far ahead"? If you were to translate that into a facial expression, then you'll get her face at that moment. After about another 5 seconds of silence, she just told me to go to my room. I learned 2 things that day. It might not always pay off, but it's always better to try and stand up for yourself. Lock your doors because the fight ain't ever over. She threw a flashbang into my room, then proceeded to whip me with her belt. Did I mention she was military? Mine nailed my half-sisters close to the floor after counting to 0. She was found unfit to care for children soon after I was conceived, and whoever my biological father is didn't want me. Probably the doctor who I'm told is my father, but that's another story. I've tried to take her in many times as she has been homeless since her mother, my maternal grandmother of course, passed away, but she has issues I feel she has no control over. Back to the op question though, my half-sisters were told to pick up their clothes and dolls and whatnot, and once the countdown was over they were nailed to the floor. Not my half-sisters, the clothes and toys of course. My half-sisters have not referred to her as mom as long as I can remember, rather always by her first name. I hope she's okay out there, because no matter what, she can be a wonderful person when her mental illness and alcoholism do not interfere, and the agnostic bastard son should not be the one who worries when the perfect Christian sisters do not. I love this story, but when my brother was a kid he wouldn't get into his car seat one day while we were driving around. My mom finally started to count. Made it to 0 and he didn't get into his car seat. She drove a couple minutes out of the way to the police station, locked us in the car, and got an officer from inside. The officer told my little brother if he didn't listen to my mother he'd be forced to arrest my little brother for breaking the law. Scared the shit out of him. He got right into his seat after that. Nothing really. We were boarding a flight back home from a vacation, and my young cousin and her mom were heading back on the same flight. There were 6 of us all in all, and we had the entire aisle booked, both rows of 3. My one brother was a mama's boy, so he wanted to sit next to my mom. But I wanted to sit next to my other brother on the other side of the aisle. So that would mean there'd be 1 seat left in each aisle. I was hoping my cousin and her mom would be okay being across the aisle from each other. But of course, first thing my cousin says upon seeing the seating arrangement is, "Oh, we're gonna be separated?" The clear resolution was for me to suck it up and just sit next to my mom and other brother so my cousin and her mom could sit together besides my brother, who I wanted to sit next to. But I was stubborn as fuck and didn't want to sit next to my mom. So my mom did the whole Markham 6246 get over here now. Now. I've still to this day never seen that look on my mom's face again. LMFAO, she legit looked like a demon, I swear to God. Lol. I didn't budge. So she did the whole I'm gonna count to 0 and you better move by then. She counted down and I didn't move. But at this point it was causing a commotion and everyone was looking at us, so I finally relented and moved. But I was fucking pissed. And to make it worse, the guy in front of me reclined his seat all the way, so I spent the entire flight pissed and uncomfortable.